Mambo Team Africa Worldwide, Abaraya Sabui, Abaraya Machana, Abaraya Gioni. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, my African family. This video is going to be short and sweet. It is titled New Nubia. It is titled The Big Nine, and it is titled The New March on Washington. So, what am I talking about? I talked about this in a previous video, and I called it The Real Plan for Reparations. And it is indeed a real plan for reparations. What I mentioned before is that the majority of Africans in America live in the southeastern portion of the United States. Those states are Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. All of those states have a minimum of 19% Black population. Now, I always talk about numbers and mathematics and how they run the universe. There's strength in numbers. That's plain and simple. So I know there's a lot of people out there, especially young people, who want to rep their hood, want to, basically be super proud of whatever city or state they're from. But in the words of Jay-Z, don't die over the neighborhood that your mama's renting. Most of us don't even own property in these places that we are so proud and loyal to. Um, I know a lot of people are going to disagree, because they go so hard, but what has New York City done for you? What has Philadelphia done for you? What has Detroit done for you? What has Chicago done for you? What has Cleveland done for you? What has St. Louis done for you? What has Nashville, Memphis done for you? What has Houston and Dallas done for you? What has Phoenix and Las Vegas done for you? What has Los Angeles, Seattle, Oakland, whatever these places done for you? Um, the smart thing for Africans in America to do is for all of us who do not live in the big 9 states that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. We need to relocate there. We should relocate there within the next year. This isn't hard to do. For young people who don't have jobs, you need to move in with grandmama, auntie, uncle, whoever lives in the big 9 states, and then look for a job out there. For my entrepreneurs and my people who work remotely by laptop every day, you have no excuse to not just pick up and move along. I know it might be a little harder for people with families, but if you're single, you should be be able to pick up and go. If you have a family, then you should discuss it amongst your family and figure out a plan and start applying for jobs in these areas. Europeans in America, they have always had New England. If you look at the NFL football team, it's the New England Patriots. It's not the Boston Patriots. And New England are basically those states from the northeastern tip, starting with Maine down to Massachusetts. That is New England. So I'm saying that my proposal is that we begin to call the southeastern states New Nubia, New Nubia. And if you notice, these states surround the national capital, which is Washington, D.C., which also has 50% black population, but I wouldn't suggest moving there because Washington, D.C. is a territory and it's that way by design. And I understand why the federal government did that. If they would have made the national capital a part of a state, which they had done in the past. Philadelphia had been the capital. Baltimore had been the capital for a second. And the question came up, well, basically, who's in charge? Does the president basically have to answer to the governor if he's located in the state? Because our states are all little mini nations, and our governors have a lot of power. And so that's why they carved Washington, D.C. out of Maryland and Virginia. But they gave the part that was Virginia back to Virginia. That's Arlington. But the current capital, Washington, D.C., is carved out of Maryland. So they're not a state. They don't have a governor. And the mayor of Washington, D.C., is beholden to president, and no legislation can pass from the District of Columbia Council until it is reviewed and approved of by Congress, um, unless it's emergency legislation. So that's why I do not suggest moving to um, Washington, D.C. They don't have certain rights that states have. But this can be our new march on Washington because these states are close to Washington, D.C., and will give us better access to the political process. Like I've said before, if we make this move, we can add approximately 2 million black people to each state. With this power, these numbers, we will have the power to elect um, uh, governors, we will have the power to elect senators. I'm not sure if there are any U.S. senators who are black right now, but there haven't been many. Barack Obama was one. I think they had another one out of Chicago, but there hasn't been many. And there hasn't been many black governors. I remember back in the day, Doug Weiler was the governor of Virginia. But if we were to make this move, establish New Nubia as the southeastern region with the big 9 states, the most heavily populated U.S. states, the most heavily populated by Africans in America, we could really establish both political power and economic power. So if you want reparations, that's how you do it. If you want sway over presidential elections, that's how you do it. A lot of people feel like their votes don't count. This is a way to make your vote count on a federal, state, and local level. Um, and another thing, my last video I made was about our identity crisis. Africans in America tend to have an identity crisis. We want to be everything but African. And I can understand wanting to have an identity that is distinct for us, even though I am a Pan African and I believe that all other Pan Africans across the globe are my family. I can understand the identity crisis that we suffer. But I would say that we should call ourselves Nubian if we want to do that. We are Africans, and ancient Nubia was in Africa. There are people in Africa now, a small percentage of people in the Sudan who go by the names of Nubian, but they have been mixed with Arabs. But the vast majority of Nubians migrated to the west and central parts of Africa, and those were our ancestors. Get on board with this new Nubia mission, the Big Nine States, the New March on Washington, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Those are the only states that Africans and Americans in America should live. This is a plan that is foolproof. Um, I have not changed my mind about repatriating to the motherland, but we have to do everything in baby steps. I know some people don't want to go back to Africa. I do advise that we all at least make one pilgrimage in our lifetime to some part of Africa. If you only do it once, I mean, you spend a lot of money going to Disney World and Disneyland and Jamaica, and you take your kids to the Great Wall of China and the Eiffel Tower in Paris and all these other places that really have nothing to do with our ancestry. You can take the money for one of those trips and just pick a place in Africa. Um, I've been to Kenya, been in Nairobi and Mombasa and Diani. It's beautiful. It's nice. I've done research on Tanzania. I think it's great. Rwanda, um, South Africa. I mean, I know they had some incidents with Nigerian immigrants in the past, but I believe all that's resolved. Namibia is good. Uh, I've heard great things about Ghana, of course, they had the year of return last year. Um, Senegal. I've seen some great videos coming out of Senegal, Dakar, I believe to be specific. That's a great place. Other places we should probably want to go just based on the history are Sierra Leone and Liberia. Those are two countries that were actually founded by African Americans. Nigeria, of course, because there's not an African in America who doesn't have some Nigerian DNA. Two countries that are related to me are Cameroon and Gabon, but they're not high on my visit list because they speak French. I don't speak French. And I know it's some English speakers in Cameroon, but yeah, I think they're being oppressed right now. There's a little bit of instability in Cameroon, so I wouldn't suggest visiting there right now, um, unless maybe you go in with a large group. But I plan to get to Cameroon eventually, and Gabon eventually, due to ancestry. But like I said, because they are francophone countries, meaning countries that speak French, that come out of the French colonial era, they're not high on my list. All of the other countries that I named, I believe, speak English. Uh, in Kenya, Tanzania, um, and other places in East Africa, they all speak Kiswahili, which is a beautiful language that I'm learning. And I'm going to be posting more videos so you all can share in my journey of learning Kiswahili. But I digress off the topic a little bit. I just wanted to let people know that I have not uh, turn my back on the idea of repatriation to the continent. But I think a good first step is for us to establish the Big Nine southeastern states as New Nubia. We don't need any legislation to do this. We don't need any plan to do this. Just us as a big group of individuals can just start migrating. We can start doing this today. Okay, with that being said, I want to say Asante Sana for watching, which means thank you very much, and Kwaharini Kwasasa. Goodbye for now. Oh, one more thing. I always forget to say, like this video if you enjoy the content, share the video, and please subscribe to my channel. Asante.